Today's class is on the devil card, and it's on the devil card from an LGBTQIA perspective. Two things to touch on here. One, I am a queer person. So is my partner, Ian. So is my apprentice,
Hello.
Tina. Which I assume you're okay with me saying.
Yes, I self-identify as queer.
Okay, because I can totally start the class over and
No,
not
you're good.
use
You're good.
a reclaimed slur if it's one you don't want. On that note, this class is from my perspective as someone who reads tarot somewhat professionally, someone who's been reading tarot since I was 14 years old, and someone who has been queer their entire life. That means it's from my perspective. So if it doesn't work for you, don't incorporate it into your readings. If this does not suit your perspective on the cards, don't use it. The person who has to use their deck for communication is the person who owns the deck. It has to be able to communicate with you. So if somebody else's book or class or instruction or advice contradicts with how you read your deck, throw it out. You read your deck in a way that makes sense to you and that you can incorporate into your practice. Secondly, trigger warnings. We are covering the devil card, so this class may touch on everything from sexual assault, STDs and STIs, family trauma, suicidal ideation, depression, anxiety, and any number of unpleasant things that could consist of a block on your life path, a block on your relationships, a block on you having a healthy outlook on life, or something that chains you in place in unpleasant circumstances. Addiction, yep. So all manner of unpleasant things that we're talking about today. So if that's not something that you want to watch, if that's not something that you feel like you can handle right now emotionally or mentally, don't watch the class. Last thing, I firmly believe that atheists can make use of tarot. I think that atheists and agnostics and secular practitioners can make use of tarot. I work with a secular and atheist witch who does. She uses it as two things. One, a mimetic tool, so a way of memorizing information. And two, as an introspective tool, a way of exploring herself and what's going on with her emotionally and mentally. If you, as an atheist or a secular or agnostic practitioner, want to incorporate tarot, I firmly believe that you can do that. I will be touching on this as a spiritual thing. Obviously, just, take a mental Sharpie and black out that portion of the class and apply what does and does not work to your own practice. I think that was all of my disclaimers and spiels.
I think so.
Okay, so, this is not just from a Rider-Waite perspective. In fact, it's primarily not from a Rider-Waite perspective. In particular, I studied Rider-Waite, I studied Mathers, I studied Paul Foster Case, I studied Atala, I studied Therins, I studied Kabbalistic Tarot, Hermetic Tarot, and I kind of smooshed them all together. Took the parts that made sense to me and threw out the parts that didn't. And then I've been reading, as I said, since I was 14 years old, so I've also just paid attention to when different cards crop up. That's what you're getting in one of these classes. So if you're holding a Rider-Waite book going, none of this is in here, that's why. Okay, moving right along. We are covering the Devil card. This is the Devil in Ciro Marchetti's Gilded Tarot Royale.
That one shows boobies.
Okay, next one shows boobies.
You can just cover it with your finger, I guess?
I think it'll be okay.
Okay.
Which deck is this?
That is the either Poison Cage or Mystical Manga, depending on if you got it directly from the artist.
Okay. Is there another one here, or?
I accidentally got out Death on that
That's okay.
deck,
No
not
worries.
the Devil.
So that was two different examples. The standard Death card has someone who has breasts and a vagina naked, and someone who has a penis naked, chained in front of the Devil. Oftentimes the Devil card is portrayed as looking very similar to Baphomet, which is not actually the same as the Devil. Sometimes it's portrayed differently, like in both of these decks. Some decks, like Ciro Marchetti's Gilded Tarot Royale, do not have the lovers chained on the card. It really depends on your deck. Regardless of whether or not there is a naked breast and vagina having and penis having person chained, the connotations of someone being chained by this card remain. Let's go forward from that. Now, I've already done a class on just the devil in general. This in particular is the devil card as applied to LGBTQIA non-gender essentialist things. So say that you are a lesbian, or you are gay, or you are trans, or you are asexual or aromantic, or you are queer in some fashion, pansexual, omnisexual, bisexual, genderqueer, gender fluid. That's what we're focusing on today. However, I want to touch on something with the devil card. One of the things that has annoyed me for years is when I pull this, how many misconceptions there are around the idea of the devil. I'm going to touch on it really, really quickly. In particular, it's important if you're going to be doing spellcraft and summoning with this card. Lucifer, the devil, and Satan are not the same figures, and I can blame modern Judeo-Christianity for having smooshed them all together, because the knowledge that these were not all the same figures was quite common in the medieval era. So, just to touch on it really, really quickly, Satan is the archangel of temptation. He works for Yahweh. He is tempting people to see if they give in. If they do not give in, then theoretically they earn some kind of reward from Yahweh, although that reward may be, I know I killed your entire family, but here's a new one. That makes up for the first one, right?
Yeah, that's what
Just have replacement children. Yes, that's Job. Because it's totally how it works. If you have a child die, you can just get a new child, and that's just a band-aid to that terrible emotional wound, and you'll stop being upset about that. I have issues with Yahweh. Satan works for Yahweh. He is the archangel of temptation. So when Satan was present in the Garden of Eden and tempted Eve, that was on Yahweh's instructions. Because nothing says I love you like I'm gonna set you up for eternal damnation unless you do exactly what I say. On that note, Lucifer is the fallen morning star, the angel who was the most beautiful and the most glorious, and who got cast down for leading either a revolt in heaven, depending upon which, version of Christianity you believe, or for being too prideful, or for believing that mankind should have free will,
or the opposite.
And believing, yes, if you are of the Church of the Latter-day Saints, then it's the opposite, and he didn't want mankind to have free will. If you're a Gnostic, then Lucifer was cast down for being the illuminator and casting light on things that Yahweh didn't want you to know. So, you know what? You get to interpret that however you want to.
I like that last one.
Well, his name means the light bringer. So,
yeah.
Anyway, on that note, the devil is the head of all of the devils. The devils were a concept that sort of borrowed from Middle Eastern, Fertile Crescent, and Hellenic mythology. The idea that there were daemons, that there were these spirits that were omnipresent. They were everywhere, and sometimes they helped mankind, and sometimes they tormented mankind. There is a devil of drink. There is a devil of addiction. There is a devil that leads you to commit adultery. And the devil is sort of the ruler of all of them. The idea that this means it's the same as Satan or the same as Lucifer is really relatively modern, as in it's within like the last 500 years that these have become so smooshed together. For the course of this course, you can identify this card as any of those that you want to. If you want to think of the devil card as bringing illumination to your problems, if you want to think of it as the force that torments and tempts, if you want to think of it as the force that controls you, the addictions, the suffering that you're going through. Essentially, it represents that which blocks, torments, or chains you. Okay? The card does not mean that the devil is after you. It does not mean that Lucifer in particular has targeted you. And it does not mean that Baphomet wants you to sign your name in the black book. Now, it can, I guess, if you're using the deck for spirit communication to specifically talk to any of those figures, and you feel like you get an answer when it comes up in your reading, well then, okay. Like I said, we did an entire class on the devil card, so I'm going to be moving forward specifically into how this applies to LGBTQIA matters, starting right now. All right, let's start with this one. If you, in particular, are doing a reading and the devil card pops up, we've already said that it represents blockages. It represents chains. It represents torment. So let's say that you get the devil card and this card right here. So this is the Five of Wands. The Five of Wands on its own represents conflict. Conflict of, well, what I think of as the flashlights. There's a reason why I think of the wands as being flashlights. They represent the light at the end of the tunnel and the path to get there. The things that make you feel passionate, the things that make you feel inspired, the things that make you feel like you have a reason to get up and get out of bed, your drive, the guiding star, the light at the end of the tunnel, and the flashlight you use to get there. In particular, though, the Five of Wands is not a particularly pleasant card to draw. It means that those forces are in conflict. They are in argument. Oftentimes, it pops up when there are voices either outside your head or inside your head arguing about what you should do with your passions, what you should do with that guiding light. So, let's say that you are a person who's going, I think I might be gay. And then you hear your family talking about all the terrible things that they think and feel about gay people. This card might crop up because their voices talking about this thing that's going to inspire you, that's going to lead you towards self-actualization, towards understanding who you are as a person, and potentially to a happy relationship at some point, they're saying this is a negative thing. They're saying you should not have this recognition. You should not get to pursue the same happiness as everybody else. Or say that you are a trans person and you're starting to come to the conclusion that you might be trans. And either you're having that exact same situation outside you where there are these arguments about trans rights, but you may also be having those arguments inside you where something goes, no, the light at the end of the tunnel here cannot possibly be that actually I'm a girl and I have been this whole time, if you're a trans woman, or that I'm a boy and I have been this whole time, if you're a trans boy, or if you are a non-gendered person, a non-binary person, and you're sitting there going like, I think I might just have no gender at all. That argument back and forth that's saying the light at the end of the tunnel can't possibly be what I think it is, or if it is what I think it is, I shouldn't pursue it. It's going to have all of these negative repercussions for me. It's going to make all of these people unhappy. You might be pulling this card and this card. So that is the Five of Wands and the Devil. That could be for anything from the people outside me had these arguments as I was growing up and I internalized them, to they're having them right now and I'm fighting not to internalize them, to there's so many different parts of me that don't know what I am. They don't know, am I trans? Am I gay? Am I genderqueer? What is going on with me? There's so many labels. There's so much misinformation. I have no clear-cut idea. All of those could be represented by pulling the Devil card and the Five of Wands. Okay, moving right along. the Emperor card, and the Devil. In particular, this one's going to apply to the Emperor card upside down. So the Emperor has the domain, it has its empire. And ordinarily, the Emperor upright represents a domain that is well protected, that has a paternalistic protective force that means well and does well. This can be in sort of a general term, you know, it can be the world in which we live that have very paternalistic forces that sort of patronize and infantilize the population. It can be an actual literal figure of authority. So it could be a boss, it could be a principal of a school, it can be a parent. But essentially someone who has this paternalistic, protective, proprietary control over the circumstances of someone's life. If it's upside down, however, that proprietary protectiveness has turned into controllingness. It is turned into, again, patronizing, infantilizing, not allowing someone to make their own choices, essentially saying, this thing will hurt you, so you can't do it. In particular, in combination with the Devil card, an upside down Emperor is someone who is really preventing you from flourishing and expanding and taking control of your own life and being an adult who's responsible for their own choices, and whether they fuck up or whether they get it right, it's on them. Taking this in an LGBTQIA context, there's already a societal thing going on here with a paternalistic society essentially saying, you know, these things are bad. They're bad because we said so. They're bad because our book says so. They're bad because our pastors say so. They're bad because bad science says so. And I do mean bad science. Eugenics and the HIV crisis were bad science. The
Anti-vaxxers are bad science?
Anti-vaxxers are bad science. Yes, it's bad science. Your sample sizes are small, your conclusions are faulty, and you should feel bad about being bad scientists. On that note, moving right along. Whether you're looking at society as a whole that tells trans people that they can't piss in public, that they are sexual predators, that they are deviants, that they are evil, bad, insane, whatever, or whether it's a paternalistic society saying that if you are asexual, you are somehow broken and need to be medicated or in an asylum. A reminder that depending upon your interpretation of the current DSM and whether the mental health professional you're working with even has the current copy of the DSM, that there's still a lot of negative attention on asexuality and aromanticism in the mental health community. It's worth it if you are asexual to make sure that your mental health provider has the most recent copy of the DSM rather than an older copy, and understands that the section on asexuality has been updated, but it still hasn't been updated in all that positive of a fashion.
Better but not good.
Better but not good, yeah. So, moving right along. Or whether you're talking about in a family or in a school, let's talk about a negative emperor in a school. How often is LGBTQIA bullying blamed on the bullied? How often is LGBTQIA bullying, you know...
If they would just fit in.
Right, if they would just be less obviously queer. If they would just not want to use the correct bathroom. If they would just, you know, be a little quieter about the problems that they're facing. Or my very special favorite, you should sympathize with the person doing the bullying because obviously they're really the person suffering here. Yeah.
They probably have a hard home life.
Yes, and we should absolutely understand that the person who is doing the bullying has a harder home life than the queer teenager, because that's statistically probable. Okay, well, let's talk about it from a position of a boss. a lot of the time, people who go to their bosses and ask for medical information about how to do transition on company insurance, or who are revealed at the Christmas party as having a girlfriend rather than a boyfriend, say that they come out as a lesbian at the Christmas party, they face repercussions at work. Or if you're talking about in a family where you get parents who are like, I really hope that my kid is not queer because they'll face so many terrible challenges and I just don't want them to have to go through that.
I support you, but not really.
Yes. Yeah. Like, I really hope that it's not so because the world is just not designed to be friendly towards them.
I'm also familiar with the, I support you, but I can't support your life choices.
Right, I love you, but I don't love the sin that you're committing. Fuck those kind of parents. Oh my God, don't have kids. Don't have kids if that kind of shit is going to come out of your mouth. So, upside down emperor, negative, paternalistic forces that infantilize and control, that say that you shouldn't make the choices you're making because they will hurt you, that you shouldn't make the choices you are making because they know better, that you shouldn't make the choices that you are making because it's somehow evil, bad, wrong, and they know best, and you should absolutely believe in their book, their experience, their knowledge of something that they are not going through themselves. Okay?
Now, say if it's someone who is in that paternalistic position, but they're smothering and holding you back because they don't want to let you go. Would it be that card or something else?
It could absolutely pop up as this card. I've also pulled this card for, I'm dating someone and, they have a kid and the grandparents of that kid don't want me around the kid because they're worried that because I'm queer, I will molest a child. Yeah. So the paternalistic person may not even be in a position of authority or paternalism over the queer person. It could be over children in the queer person's life. So say that you apply for a school, you want to be a teacher, you're gonna teach these youngsters, and then somebody finds out you're queer and they go, oh, protect the children from the queers. Just as a side note, just for a moment, white cis straight men commit more sexual assaults on children. Just as a straight number. Statistically, the person who is most likely to be a pedophile is the white, straight, cis man. Because it turns out that looking around you and seeing other people as sex objects that you are entitled to use, seeing them not as a person but as an object for your sexual gratification, comes from entitlement. And guess who has that kind of entitlement? One of the things that really squicks me about the portrayal of LGBTQIA relationships, not just in media, though it's prevalent there, but in the mental idea of LGBTQIA people in sort of straight cis culture, is hypersexualized. There's this idea that gay people are having all the sex all the time, that they don't actually have love, they have sex. And to be clear, I'm not sex shaming. You have as much sex as you want with as many consenting partners as you want. I recommend that you practice, safe sex, safer, saner, risk-aware sex, but this is not a sex shaming thing. I'm saying that there is an idea in white, straight, middle American, Judeo-Christian, cisgendered culture that the queers are having all the sex all the time, that they always want to have sex all the time, that they can't be sexually assaulted because they must want it all the time.
Love is reserved for the cisgender people.
Yes, love is reserved for cisgendered heterosexual people. And that ended up leading to some really negative ideas around the AIDS crisis. Just really negative, unhealthy ideas that persist to this time. But the idea that we're these sex fiends who always want sex and therefore must be, sexual predators is highly prevalent as well. One of the things to keep in mind about this portrayal of hypersexualism is that I have seen a reader pull the lover's card and pull the devil card and be like, oh, you are too obsessed with sex to a queer person, and have no idea why that was a fucked up thing to say. Yeah, I've participated in my fair share of psychic fairs. It's been fun. It's been fun. Moving right along. Especially the assumption that the Two of Cups is always a man and a woman.
I would kind of also jump to the conclusion that, like, wow, you're being abused by a partner. Like, that is, like, just as or maybe even more likely to be the case with that specific
with the devil card and the lover's card, especially if the lover's is upside down, my question would be, are you being forced to have sex you don't want? Yeah. So are you being raped? Because forced sex is rape. We have a word for that. Moving right along. King of Cups upside down and the devil card. So the King of Cups upright is a fairly positive card. They can be emotionally overwhelming, the people that it represents, but they generally are a positive force. The King of Cups upright is someone who loves and has deep emotional strength, deep emotional capability, deep emotional understanding. That can sometimes be a little overwhelming, but, they mean well. I don't ever come up represented as cups. Anyway, upside down, however, you ever known that person who, when you're like, hey, I love you, but I need a little distance. I need a little time to myself. And they go, you don't love me anymore. That's the King of Cups upside down. It is that person. They are histrionic. They are manipulative. All of that emotional intelligence is flipped. It's used to control you. It is used to understand your emotions sometimes better than you understand your emotions. The King of Cups sweeps you emotionally off your feet. If it's upright, that can be positive. If it's upside down, it's negative. In LGBTQIA relationships, this one pops up a lot. In particular, it pops up when an elder person in the LGBTQIA community uses their knowledge of transition or knowledge of recognition of someone's gender or sexual identity, the experiences they've had, to be sort of I'm going to usher you into the queer community, and I'm going to be your emotional support as you go through this period of self-identification and, claiming of your identity and your expression. And in particular, this relationship often turns predatory. And it's something that nobody warns young LGBTQIA people about. And I'm going to use an example here. A movie recently came out that was super, super celebrated in the LGBTQIA community on Tumblr. It's called I'll Call You By My Name or something.
I don't know, I didn't see it.
And it portrays a relationship between a teenager and an adult. And in particular, a married adult who has an affair with a teenager, which means they were raping that teenager. And this is somehow portrayed as a romance movie. And I've noticed this in the LGBTQIA community. And I'm saying this from someone who's inside it. This is not me standing outside as like a cis or straight person going, tisk tisk. I'm saying I'm in the community. I'm not cis, not straight. And I've seen this, and I've had it start to happen to me, where an older queer person, pursues a much, much younger queer person, and in particular uses their emotional knowledge of claiming the identity, of going through transition as a hook. And in particular, because people are afraid to come out, and I'm not trying to denigrate that, I understand that fear, because it's not safe to come out, because it's not safe to be loud and out and proud about what's happening to us. There are people who will take advantage. There are people who will go, that's a young queer teenager, and I'm secretly queer, and I'm going to pursue them and rape them, and I'm going to tell them they should be grateful for it because they're queer and it's the only thing they're going to get. And I'm going to use the fact that they're afraid to come out as a way to keep this quiet. And I'm going to point you at Republican congressmen. I'm going to point you at Republican politicians because they do this. I'm going to point you at conservative preachers. There are so many scandals where it turns out that someone who stands...
airport bathrooms?
Yeah.
I've heard a few about.
Someone who stands behind a pulpit talking loud and proud anti-LGBTQIA as their, you know, their way of getting money, their way of getting votes, their way of getting community support and recognition. They preach hatred and turn around and have a non-consensual affair with a 15-year-old. And they use this whole like, oh, well, we can't be out loud and proud. We can't be open to control and manipulate those people. Or they use the hook of, I want to be your guide. I want to be your emotional guide during this difficult time. You should trust me and listen to me. This is not a good combination to get about a relationship in general, but in particular in the LGBTQIA community, they have additional emotional hooks. In particular, I'm going to share one that I've been through personally. You won't be able to find someone else because I'm the only queer person we know. Yeah. My very first really serious queer relationship, one of my girlfriends basically was like, well, you're a lesbian and there are no other lesbians that you know. I'm it for you. So you either have to make it work with me or be alone. I've seen this in disabled relationships too. The whole no one else is willing to stay with you, put up with you, take care of you, so it doesn't matter that I'm hurting you. And in particular in the queer community, I see a lot we're in a small town. There's only so many gay people. I guess it's this or nobody. Pick nobody, get out. The Devil card and the Ten of Cups upside down. Ten of Cups is never a good thing to pull upside down. It's essentially the heartbreak card. The everything I've ever wanted in life is not working out. Like everything you're planning on wanting in your life. Your dream job, your dream school, your dream spouse, your perfectly supportive and loving family, the countries you want to visit. Upside down, it's like this all came crashing down. And in particular, I've pulled it with the Devil card for queer teenagers who were outed to their families. And the whole, okay, your family isn't going to pay for your school. They aren't going to pay to send you to Europe. They aren't going to support you when you get married. You are going to have to do all of this the hard way. You're going to have to do it the clinging, fighting, crawling, cursing, one step at a time, no support kind of a way. When this happens, these teenagers are just despondent. They've come to me crying, shaking, sobbing, what am I going to do? They were paying for my car. They were paying for my school. They were paying for my apartment. They kicked me out. I'm sleeping rough. I'm living on a friend's couch. You'll get through it. And you will find family again. And it will be family the real way. Because any family that's going to kick you out for something about yourself that you can't control, that's going to cut the web of support that was holding you up, is not a family that you want to be connected to. And here's what I would recommend. Say that you are a queer person who just found out that your family is this way and you're trying to salvage something. Here's my question for you. I imagine as part of your imaginary family, you may or may not be building an image of the children you will eventually have. Say that you are. Say that you're building an image of, I'm going to find my perfect spouse or spouses, and we are going to have this many kids. Do you want the people who just cut the support from you to be in a position to emotionally control your children? And if you don't, don't give them permission to emotionally control you. If in your head you would not entrust a hypothetical child to these people, don't entrust yourself to those people.
Get out.
Get out. You'll be able to rebuild your life. And you may find that a lot of the things that you wrote on your notebook that you wanted are kind of things that you wanted because of that influence of that family. That idea that you'd scrawl on a notebook, I had to tell you, the life I'm living now is not the life I designed for myself on the cover of my notebooks, and I think it's 100 times better. And the lack of someone like my birth father has done me no harm and a world of good. So it's devastating when it happens, but you'll get through it. Devil card and the Three of Swords. This crops up in a bunch of relationships, not just LGBTQIA relationships, but so many relationships. Essentially, a force is blocking, chaining, controlling, or negatively impacting your relationship with another person or with yourself. The conclusion to that, the method via which that block or chain or harm will be removed is something that some part of you recognizes and is ready to pursue, and the other parts of you are like, no, 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 no. Hence, a divided heart, a heart torn in two.
You know what you need to do, but you really don't want to do it.
Yep, you know what you need to do, you know what you want to do, you know what you should do, and for some reason, you're torn up about it. So this can be anything from, I know my partner's cheating on me, but I really, really don't want to leave them, to I know my partner is hurting me, but I really, really don't want to leave them, or I know that I am trans, and I don't want to acknowledge it. I know that I am a lesbian, or I am gay, or I am pan, or I am bi, or I am any of the LGBTQIA gender identities and sexual identities, and I don't want to be. I don't want to confront it. This would be when you would pull clarifying cards. You know, if you pull a clarifying card and you get the Two of Cups upside down, it's a partnership thing. The partner and or partners are unhealthy. They are hurting you. If you pull something like strength upside down, there is something about you that if you claim it and recognize it and hold on to it, it will give you strength, it will give you purpose, but you're not letting yourself do that, so instead it is robbing you of your strength. So strength upside down, good sign it's something internal. Two of Cups upside down, good sign it's something external. Lovers upside down, good sign it's something external, something in a relationship with a person. That's not always a sexual relationship, just a relationship with a person that you need to resolve. That's not healthy, and you know it. But the Chariot. Pull the Chariot and the Devil card together a lot. A lot. In particular, when the Chariot is upside down, I pull it with the Devil card, but I also pull the Devil card in the past position and then the upright Chariot and the present position quite a bit, often for myself. So, yes, the Chariot is progress from point A to point whatever. It is, I started somewhere and I am making it to somewhere else, whether that's internally or externally, whether that is a mental or emotional journey or an actual physical journey. It is, I am making forward progress. Now, my teachers always said that the reason why the Chariot is pulled by two sphinxes is because those represent the other gates. The gate of the High Priestess, the gate of the High Priest. The gate of the High Priestess is enlightenment through knowledge of the self, pursuit of understanding who you are as a person, your place within the universe. Whereas the gate of the High Priest is enlightenment through knowledge of the outer world rather than the inner world, you know, studying epistemological and basically studying the outer world, other people's ideas, other people's knowledge, and understanding the world that way. So you can either focus on intuition or on external data, or both, ideally both. In particular, those are the two forces that you have pulling your chariot. You have these internal journeys of self-knowledge, and you have these external journeys of self-knowledge. You get assistance from your teachers, you get assistance from the voice of intuition within you, and both of these cause forward progress. In particular, I pull the chariot upside down a lot for LGBTQIA people because there aren't a lot of external forces that are designed to help us make progress. And we have to do a lot of the work ourselves. Basically, when you pull the chariot upside down, it means that one of those gates, the gate that's behind the high priest or the gate that's behind the high priestess, you didn't get to cross through it the easy way. You had to pursue it the hard way. So either that's an internal thing where the journey to self-identity and self-expression was difficult, or whether that's an external thing, the journey to being accepted for that self-identity and self-expression was difficult, or even if it's just that queer people are allergic to their own history and they really don't want to teach it accurately, or whether that's just America is allergic to its own history and really doesn't want to teach it accurately, or that the world is allergic to its own history and doesn't want to teach it accurately. It's a bumpy road for queer people. It's a bumpy road for LGBTQIA people. But so often I pull this upright. I pull this upright in the present or in the future, which means making forward progress rapidly. It means that at some point, those two gates got in alignment. The understanding of the self and the understanding of the world, the pursuit of knowledge of the self and the pursuit of knowledge of the world aligned, and you are making progress. You are making progress towards a goal. Maybe that goal is living out loud and proud. Maybe that goal is finding a partner. Maybe that goal is studying queer history at a liberal arts college. You know, maybe that goal is working for a job that you love, but you're making it. And it's bumpy, but you'll get there. Da-da-da. So, da-da-da. The Devil card and the Knight of Swords upside down. The thing that is blocking and chaining you is that you are allergic to self-care. What is it with the LGBTQIA community and not pursuing self-care? What is that? Because, I mean, I've been in the Judeo-Christian community, and I've been in in particular, the fundamentalist, extremist, anti-LGBTQIA community, and I've been in because that's certainly not an all Christians thing. And in the Judeo-Christian community, there are so many people encouraging each other to take care of themselves. And like, if somebody gets sick, then all the other church women bring food. If somebody dies, then all the other church women bring food. If somebody's going through a rough time, then people come and clean their homes. They pray with each other. They pick each other up. But the queer community has an allergy to self-care, and there's a lot of self-flagellation, a lot of I should just not need to take care of myself. I should just not need to help myself. And there's so much animosity and gate guarding and exclusionary insular tactics rather than overall community support. And don't get me wrong, a lot of those church ladies were bringing food to show off how well they cooked. A lot of those church ladies were coming over to, take a look around and then turn around and gossip to the pipeline. There was still a sense of community that seems to be kind of broken in the LGBTQIA community. Now, I'm going to say it's getting better in the younger group. I'm seeing a lot of difference in the people who are coming up in it now than the people who were at Pride when I was 17. When I was at Pride, when I was 17, there is this pressure to constantly be happy, to constantly be flirty, jokey, non-serious, and to not acknowledge when you need help. Suicidal ideation is a huge problem in the LGBTQIA community. And when you pull this combination, there's an unhealthy chaining to this idea that you should not need rest, that you should not need to take time to take care of yourself, that you have to constantly be out there doing the work and doing the vision and pursuing things, and you don't get any time to recover. You can't fill anybody else's cup if your cup is empty. You can't take care of anybody else if you've worn yourself down to having no resources, and it is okay to not be positive all the time. There's a big intersection between the positivity movement and the like, oh, well, you're responsible for what you attract, and if you're negative, then only negative things will happen to you, and, you know, you should forgive and pursue love. A lot of this really deeply harmful spiritual bypassing in the queer community. You know, we're told to focus on forgiveness and love and positivity and light and not be angry and not be mad, and if we're angry, then we deserve the anger that people directed us. Take some time to be angry. Take some time to be sad. Take some time to take a fucking bubble bath. Like, self-care. Alrighty, moving on. Alright, devil card. And this one upside down.
That's 5 of Pentacles, right?
There's the 5 of Pentacles. 5 of Pentacles upright essentially means you're going through a really goddamn hard time here when it comes to things that make you feel stable, secure, grounded, and prepared for your future, but you'll get through it. You will get to the other side of it. When you pull it with the devil card upside down, it means that the thing that is really chaining you and really blocking you is your inability to see that you will get through it. That you're essentially chaining and holding yourself in this certainty that you won't get through it. Life doesn't stop, and yes, you will. Try to get to this, where you know you're gonna get through it, rather than this. And I'm not doing the positivity movement thing. I'm not saying that you attracted your struggles to yourself by believing you're having struggles. I'm saying you only find a door out when you're looking for the handle. Okay. This one with the devil card. Hey, it's the 8 of Swords.
Oh yeah, that one. I get that
8
one.
of Swords is pretty explicitly an abuse card. When it's upright, it's actually worse than if it's reversed. If it's reversed, you're getting out of it. You have gotten out of it. If it's upright, you haven't. One of the things that I have seen on Tumblr is that there seems to be this belief in the queer community that there are no abusers in the queer community. That somehow, like, only straight cis people are abusive. There are abusers in every community, and just because somebody belongs in your niche does not mean that they are not capable. Like, you are going to meet people who perpetuate the cycle of abuse everywhere, whether they are an abuser themselves or they are an abuse excuser, okay? Whether they are enabling or perpetuating or doing. They're everywhere. They're in the pagan community, they're in the spiritualist community, they're in the extremist fundamentalist Christian community, they're in the good Christian community, they're in the queer community. And again, they use that language, you won't be able to find another partner, except they have that additional hook of it is hard as a queer person to find another queer person. You never know if you approach someone if they're going to respond violently. You never know if it is safe to be open about your relationship, and that's awful. But it doesn't mean you can't have a happy one. It doesn't mean you can't have a healthy one. It means you may have to work a little harder, but it is better to be alone than surrounded by swords, blindfolded and tied up. So, moving right along. The Hanged Man upside down and the Devil card. good things can happen to you, and what you're being chained to is the belief that they can't. LGBTQIA youth are the most abused youth in the nation. They are. They tend to go through a lot of bad, and they tend to have to make hard choices very young. And in particular, making those hard choices over and over and over again can make you believe that A, there's something wrong with you, and that you've just messed up over and over and over again, or you'd have had better opportunities or better things happen to you, that you somehow deserved it or you wouldn't have gone through it, that you just make bad choices, or you're just a terrible person. It doesn't help that a lot of the people who hurt you will absolutely tell you that it is your fault and you made bad choices. I watched my abuser turn around and tell someone new the exact same things that he had used to justify his abuse of me. The exact word for word. It was never about me, it was always about him. In particular, we get to this point where we've internalized the awful things that people say about queer people. We've internalized the awful things that people said when they hurt us, and we start thinking that we don't deserve good things and that they won't ever come. And that can actually stop us from reaching for new opportunities. It stops us from submitting an application for a job that we want. It stops us from posting that amazing video of us singing online, or pursuing going to a school we want to go to, or even pursuing healthy relationships. I came very, very close to not pursuing Ian because I had decided that I wasn't capable of having good relationships, that every relationship I've ever had gone so badly that I just wasn't capable. I was broken somehow. And now I'm in a really emotionally healthy relationship. And it takes work. I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying we're perfect. So take a look, if you're getting these cards together, that what's blocking you might be your ability to understand you're worthy of good things. Alrighty. Da-da-da. I'm going to do these two at once because I almost always pull these at once. Devil, justice, death. Devil, justice, death. Almost always like this. Sometimes death is upside down, sometimes justice is upside down. Okay? Essentially, this card combination is you are chained in circumstances beyond your control at this time. You are capable of pursuing justice for yourself, getting yourself out, and pursuing a new opportunity to an entirely new life. That's what that combination means. It's not always safe to come out. Okay? And there's so much pressure in the online queer community to come out as soon as possible, or you're living a lie, or you're not really queer, you're not really LGBTQIA. If you're in an abusive set of circumstances, if your family is not safe to come out to, there is nothing wrong with taking their money for your first car and your college and getting yourself all the way out and then being like, hi family, I'm queer, bye. That doesn't make you an evil person. That doesn't make you bad. You being queer should not damage their unconditional love for you, and if it does, that's on them, not on you. You're not a liar for waiting till it's safe. Please wait till it's safe. And say that there is no money for college and a car. Okay, get out as soon as you can. Sometimes the death card is upside down. You don't have the opportunity yet. You don't, wait for the open door. Wait for the college acceptance letter. Wait for the after-school job. Wait for the friend who says, hey, do you want to live in my summer house for a while? That's an actual story. I know a girl whose aunt's best friend let her stay in her summer home until she was on her feet to get her out of a bad set of circumstances. Your way out may come through the weirdest set of linked connections, 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon kind of thing. That's okay. And taking their help doesn't mean something's wrong with you, and waiting until you have help doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. And this whole idea that you have to say right away what you are, even when it's not safe, is deeply damaging and harmful, and it's getting people hurt. So if you're one of the people perpetuating it, quit it. Okay, last one. Two of Swords and the Devil card for LGBTQIA people. And I tell you something that I wish someone had told me. As a queer person, you are never done cutting everyone out of your life. You are never done cutting people out of your life. It will happen over and over and over again. You're never done coming out, and you're never done cutting people out. Because you're going to have to come out over and over and over again, and eventually hit that person who's like, I voted for Trump, and let's not let our friendship be ruined because I voted for Trump. And it's like, you voted for somebody who sent the UN ambassador to vote against the death penalty for gay people. That's who you voted for. You voted for a vice president who wants us to be electrocuted for being queer, who wants us to not be able to transition. They perpetuate the myth that LGBTQIA people are all sexual predators. They perpetuate the myth that we all have AIDS, that as if you are an HIV survivor, if you are an AIDS survivor, there is nothing wrong with you and you are not dirty. You are not dirty and you did not bring it down on yourself. You're sick, and that's not the same thing. I have to cut friendships that are forming, people that I think we're going to be friends, and I'm really excited to make a new friend, and then they say something, and I'm like, oh,
never mind.
Just get to cut those emotional ties. And I know every time I talk about this, I get the same things sent to me. It's not just politics. It's people's lives. It's not just anything.
It's never just a joke.
It's never just a joke. It's not just politics. People live and die over this. People either live happy, healthy, emotionally, sound, mentally sound lives, or take their own lives over stuff like this. People are like, oh, well, it's just a bathroom, Bill. You ever been in public and really needed to pee? Not letting someone use the bathroom they are safe to use is a way of making it so it's not safe for them to exist in a public sphere. A president who wants the death penalty to be on the books for countries for someone being queer, we're literally talking Nazi ideology. People deserve to die for being queer. That's the politics we're talking about. And this is not hypothetical. There are countries where they'll kill you if they catch you. And Mike Pence wants that here. I'm going to tell you, this thing that people do where they just test a little bit of racism, a little bit of prejudice, a little bit of sexism, a little bit of bigotry, a little bit of LGBTQIA phobia, and they wait to see how everyone responds. That is a foot in the door. And then they'll start sliding more and more and more and more until it's overt. And they can literally shift the social dynamics of a community over time to be worse and worse and worse and worse by taking advantage of that foot in the door. It's just a joke. Why are you taking this so personally? Why are you taking this so seriously? It's just a comment. It's just that I was raised differently. It's just that I didn't understand. It's just politics. It's people's lives. It's your life if you're an LGBTQIA person and you're watching this video. It's your life if you're a person of color and you're watching this video. It's your life if you're a Muslim and you're watching this video. And they won't stop. It will go from that just to something bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and you are never done cutting people out. And this is my advice to you. Do it as soon as possible. Imagine the worst door-to-door salesman ever. The sleaziest, most racist, bigoted, door-to-door salesman, sexist, misogynistic LGBTQIA. This is a monstrous human being, a person who wants to deprive everyone of the basic recognition of their human rights and loves to make jokes about it like it's funny, and they stick their foot in the door. Do what you wish you could do to obnoxious, door-to-door salesman. Cut the fucking foot off. Cut them out of your life. Don't tolerate it, because they will shift a community against you. Yeah. I think that's our class for today. Basically, devil card, blocks, chains, unhealthy situations. When you're a trans person, your blocks and chains and unhealthy situations shift a little bit. The resources that you need to get out of them shift a little bit. But they are out there. Help is out there, and those situations will not last forever. Please don't give up. The world is a better, more wonderfully diverse place with you in it. And if you ever are on the verge of giving up, please reach out to us or to someone else and get help, because we want you to put one foot in front of the other and get past the devil to what's on the other side.